Hi, everybody, and welcome to this month's Lunch and Learn. We're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to come into the webinar, and then we'll get started going over receiving DSD and POs. All right, guys, let's get started here. So welcome to this month's Lunch and Learn. My name's Christina Riddell. I'm part of the marketing team here at STCR. Jen is going to be our tech running through as per the usual. So this month we're going to be going over receiving DSD and PO within the ThriVersA platform. Jen, if you are ready, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Christina, for that introduction. As she stated, today we're going to be focusing on receiving DSD and purchase order in the ThriVersA application. We have in previous webinars went over best practices for receiving DSD and purchase orders for SMS and SMS Pro. So today we're really going to focus on ThriVersA and how to do that process in ThriVersA and what features have been added in here that enhance the experience. So I have it up here on the screen. If you have not gone into this module yet, this is the buying module for ThriVersA. If you're using the URL, that's going to be buy right here when you're going between the various ones, or you can always click on the lock icon right here and choose the eSuite buy option. Generally speaking, I know most of our webinars we've been focusing on manage, so it's just an easy way to go in between each of the different modules. But you can always tell when you're in the buy module. If you look over here on the left-hand side, I'm going to have the buy option, inventory option over here. So that's where all the different modules come into play. So with receiving purchase order DSD, the main driver is always going to be your vendor. The nice thing is that if you are in the buy module, you don't need to change which module you're in. If you're going to have to work on anything like that, you can add vendors here, you can add cost records here. They have ported everything in here to make it kind of a one-stop area. I'm going to make this larger just so that way you can zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to start with that. So if you are looking to look at the vendors in ThriVersA when you're doing receiving or add new vendors before you start a receiving or purchase order document, it's all going to be here under dimensions, under vendors. You can come in here, you can do vendor maintenance, you can add vendors. So right here, the top section is where you're going to do your vendor maintenance, and then down below is where you can run all the reports that your vendors may want to have run for them. If you click on list, this will give you a search option to look for your different vendors. So I do like this enhancement that they've done here. So you can search by vendor ID, you can search for vendor name, but you can also search by item code and item description. So if you have an item and you're not sure what vendor it is tied to, what vendor you get it from, you can actually just type in the UPC code and you can look for the item and or look for the item description here, and it will give you a list of the vendors that have that either specific item code or have any item that matches those descriptions. There is some more search options available as well, so you can search by contact name, phone number, address, count, country, or you can search by any of like item criteria, so sub-department, category, family code, UPC code. So you can really be very flexible. If you're looking for a specific vendor and you can't remember which one it is, you can stack that criteria. And then if you just click on all from this, instead of getting the search options, you'll just get all the vendors. And you can make any edits, you can make any changes here that you need to do to a vendor. So you can do that by selecting the vendor, then down here you can click on the edit button, and you have all the fields. If you're used to SMS, SMS Pro, these fields are pretty familiar. They have added a few, they have split out a few of them to make it a little bit easier, but you still have your vendor ID, name, phone number, all that information, address, email. You can click go into order. You can set your minimum and maximum cases if they have that by vendor. Default quantity, the default unit of measure if you have a vendor that likes to have those specifically in there. You can also set any terms that the vendor may have back if you're doing back orders, anything like that, and just some general notes that you can add into the vendor. So that's all still available here under the buy module. And you can also add a new vendor. Just clicking this plus button right here and populating in the relevant information. Vendor ID is the essential one. It's alphanumeric, but having more information is always better. So name, contact, whatever additional information you want to have for those vendors. The other big part when you're doing purchase order receiving is now that you have the vendor, it's having the cost record tied to the item. So that is also still available here. So they have brought over all the item maintenance. So you have it right here under the drop down for items. So if you have an item, you need to adjust a cost record or you need to add a cost record to an item, you can do all of that item maintenance right here. You go into your item master. You can pull up your items using any of these searches, the items, the prices, POS. If the item already has a cost record tied to the vendor, then you can easily just search by cost if you need to edit the cost record. However, if the item that you're looking at does not have a cost record at all yet, this will not pull the information or pull the item up because it doesn't have a cost record. So if you do want to add a cost record to an item, you would want to go under price, POS information, items, so that way you can pull up the item and then hit plus to add the cost record. But all of that has been put over here. I've gone over item maintenance a few times in different webinars, so you can refer back to those videos. I do want to focus on the actual receiving portion, but just so you can see that all of that is here that you can edit and add that information. So the bulk of what you're going to be doing in this is going to be doing purchase orders, receiving, billing documents, and DSD, and all of those are underneath the buy drop-down. So if you come in, you're not seeing them, you just have to click the down arrow and they'll show up over there. If you're familiar with how receiving works with SMS Pro, it does behave the same way in ThriVersA. So purchase orders, receiving documents, and billing documents all tie together. You can have a purchase order document standalone, you can do a receiving document standalone, billing document standalone, or you can have them all tie together. So you can build a receiving document from purchase order and a billing document from a receiving order. So you can follow those steps if you choose. The DSD, direct store delivery, a lot of different terms people use for that. That is a standalone document. That is a all-in-one receiving and billing document. This does not tie in, so you can't build another document based on this, but it's convenient to use if you have certain vendors that you don't do purchase orders for, or you have some vendors that you do purchase orders for and some that you don't. They just show up to the back door, so you can just use DSD for those and receiving order billing for the other ones. You can do a mix and match of both. To use them in ThriVersA, I'm just going to start with a purchase order since that's generally where most receiving and purchasing starts. So you're just going to click on order, and then you're going to start your document. So there's a few options if you're starting a document. You can go into your vendors to search for a vendor. This is the same idea as what I was showing you before in the vendor maintenance. This will give you a search. You can search for a vendor, and then you can then start the document from there. You can just click on all. This will give you a list of all of the vendors in your system, and then you can choose one to build the document off of. Documents will show you is a search. So you can come in here and search for, if you're already working on an existing already open order, you can look at the already open order and continue working on it, or you can look for a closed order and make a duplicate. And you can just look at all the orders. It just doesn't have the search. They also just have a new button. This will just start a new order. So there's various different ways you can get in. I'm going to just do this from new. So you're starting a new document, and then you just got to pick your vendor. So you click on the little down arrow, and it gives you a search, and you just need to search the vendor that you would like to order from. This is going to be able to search in both the number and the description. So depending on what you're typing, you can type in any part of the description, or you can type in the number, and it will search both fields. I'm going to go ahead and just say my Adams brand for my order. Highlight that, click OK. It's going to populate in here. If you are doing this at a host environment and you want to push this down, you can change the target for this. It is optional. It does say it's optional. So if you're doing this at like a host, you're doing this for a specific target, like store 1, store 2, store 3. Before, if you've done this before, you have to pick the global store. Now you can just actually just pick the target as you're building the purchase order. You don't have to go do that part. And you can click create. And now you're in the document. Doesn't look like it did much, but if you look over here, now all of this is no longer grayed out, and I can start adding my items to the purchase order. It does give me the purchase order number up here, and over here on the right-hand side, it does say current transaction and giving you that information as well. That's the indicator that you're now in a document. So now we just need to add items to our order. So you can click on items. This will be a search. So if you're wanting to do a search for an item, you want to scan in your items, you can search by UPC code, any description, subdepartment, category, family, report code, or alternate code. If you look right here, this is grayed out. It says vendor ID, use vendors from document. Because I picked a specific vendor when I started this order, this is not an option. It will only search for items that have a cost record tied to this item. So if you put in like a UPC code that does exist in your system but doesn't have a cost record tied to this item, it will not find that item because it doesn't have a cost record associated with this vendor. If you were doing an open vendor, you could then narrow it down in here. So if you remember, if you have used this receiving before in SMS, you can set vendor to be what we call open vendor, which means that you can order from any item that has a valid cost record tied to it. Valid meaning that it's tied to a vendor that exists in the system. And you set it up the same way that you do in SMS. You just have to set the category to open. I'll show you how to do that at the end. That is still here in ThriVersA as well as SMS, but that would be when this becomes an option that you can then just choose a certain vendor that you're looking for. You can then also just click on all. This will bring all of the items that have a cost record associated with the vendor that you chose. And then suggestions. This is a suggested ordering that's available in ThriVersA. So if you click on suggestions, you can just do a suggested ordering based on sales. So you can just click based on sales, and it will give you, you can look at some sales information, so you can pick your time period. If you want to average certain period, anything like that. So it will actually give you suggestions based on the sale, like if you want to pick the year, month, the last month, how much you did on sales, how much would the system suggest you order with, you go ahead and do that. But for our purposes, I'm just going to go and we're just going to use the all. So that will bring me all of the items that I have a cost record tied to this vendor. So that way I just get a good list of items that I can order from. And then I can go ahead and start ordering from here. If you're familiar with ThriVersA, I've done a few different trainings and webinars on this, but all of the features that we've seen before with reporting, with item maintenance, you can remove columns, you can add columns, you can click up here on the little down arrow. So if there's something on here, this is too much information for me for a purchase order, you can come in here and you can say, I don't need to see, we'll go into item, I don't need to see the brand, I don't need to see the size, whatever it may be. I don't need to see the totals, I don't need to, well, you probably want to see that for that for a purchase order, but you can go ahead and remove what you would like to not see. You can also click and move if you want to move the columns to the left or right, whatever suits you best. Once you've set that up, you have the general settings up here, so you can come up and click on Save Layouts, and you can save this layout to be used later. Same applies with that. You can give it a name, so you can just choose this one, or you can make it your default layout. And you can also make it public so other people can use the same layout. So those options are all here as well for these documents. To go through though, it's pretty easy to go through and start ordering. So you see order, since we're in a purchase order, and you just need to, I want to order a certain amount of units, so you can come through and do 2 units. If you see that, it does pause for a few seconds when you're adding it to the purchase order. So what you can do instead of waiting for that to go through, you can go through. So I'm just going to order 1 case of this item, 1 case of this item. It will highlight it in red, so you can quickly go down the list on what you would like to order. Then at the end, you can click on the little check mark and save it all to the document, making it nice and easy. A little confusing aspect of this is that you see the little divots on the case units and weights. However, you may not be able to order by all of those. It does still tie to the cost record and what you have set on the cost record that you can order each of these items by. So over here, you'll see my unit of measure, UC. That dictates if I can order by unit and case or just case. So C is case, UC is unit and case. If I try to order this item by weight, I'm double clicking on it. I cannot double click on it. I cannot click on the unit. I can only click on the case. So it's not grayed out, but that does tell you why, if you're wondering why you can't order by a specific unit or weight on a specific item. If this is something you would like to change, then you can pull up the cost record and make changes while you're doing a purchase order. So if you come down to Edit, go under Master Tables and Cost Master, you can open up the cost table and have this open and available for you while you're doing a purchase order. And this is going to hold true for receiving. This is going to hold true for all of the documents I'm going through. So you can see right here, I have this item up. This is a C item. My unit of measure is blank. Default blank is cases. So if I want to be able to order this item by units and cases, I need to do the drop down and I need to select case and I need to select unit. Once I save this, as long as I haven't added this item into the purchase order document, it refreshes immediately, and I can now go and I can order this by units. So if it has already been put into the order, it will not go back and change it, but you can go back and order by you can go back and change it. You can go back and now order by units instead of cases. Just take like a -1 case and do your units instead. But if you do this before you put it in the purchase order, it will update. It will also do the same thing if you need to update the cost. So right here, you have your cost. This could be the cost for that you're just paying a different cost when you're ordering it for this one item, for this one document. You can change the cost here on the document. If you would like to change it on the actual cost record, you need to go to this cost master and you can change it here. And if you change it here before the item is put in, I have a prompt put on to prompt me anytime I change the cost, but you can see right here that it changes the cost. Now again, this is only if you haven't already added the item into the purchase order document, it will adjust the cost. If you've already added it, it will not go back and retroactively fix the cost. This does hold true for receiving and DSD as well. It has to be done before you add the item to the document. Once you add it to the document, it's considered a frozen in time. You received it or you purchased it at the time, and that's what the cost was, so it won't update the document. You have to do a manual intervention, but if you do the cost table first and then you order it or receive it, it will update it. So a nice feature that's been added on here. So once you're done with your purchase order, I'm going to go ahead and save it because I have that little box highlighted red, meaning it hasn't been saved to my document yet. I'm just going to go ahead and close my cost record just to give us a little bit better view here. Over here is where we're going to be focusing on. So you see my current transaction. So what can I do from here? You can click on the 3 lines, and maybe you need to print the document, so you can print from here. suspend the document. If you are not quite done with the document, you can suspend it to come back and edit later, close the document, or cancel the document. So you also have these options up here. So if you need to edit a specific line, you can click on here to edit a line. It will bring you to a line. This is the buy. This looks pretty familiar. This is kind of what you've used to seeing in SMS when you're doing purchasing right now. So if you like this view better, that is available. You can also click down here to get that buy view as well. And then go back over here, we can just show the totals. We'll just show the total amount that you have in here. And you can look at your purchase history. So if you're wanting to see if you've already purchased this item, your movement, your sales of this item. So maybe, do I need to purchase this item? Do I not? You can go ahead and view all of this here. You can come over here and you can pull this up while you're going through the document. So that way you can watch it while you're going through. Kind of a nice way to be able to see that. I don't have a lot of sales in my lab on some of these items, but you can pull this over kind of so that way you can see. Maybe you do, maybe you don't want to order the item. But when you're all done, down here you do have the close document, cancel document, suspend document, so that way you can go ahead and close it and be out of the document and complete it. Moving into the receiving document, the nice thing is looks exactly the same pretty much as what we just looked at. So I have the same options. If you want to start a receiving document, you can go into vendors. You can search for a vendor. You can look at all the vendors. You can look at documents. You can go into all documents. This is the search. This is all documents, or you can just create a new receiving document. So this is where that comes into play, that you can just do a standalone receiving document, or you can go in and you can build one off of a closed purchase order. If you wanted to go in and build it off a closed purchase order, that's where you're going to want to go into the document search. So you're going to go into document search and you're going to look for closed orders. So that way you can look for an order that has been closed, and I can just go ahead and execute, and you can select, and then you can do action, and you can open. If you find the closed purchase order, you can open that, and it will create a new receiving document based on the purchase order. However, just as I did want to just do a little bit different here, I'm going to go and show you how you can do it from the vendor, open up a brand new document from the vendor table. So going into vendors, go into all. So this will just bring up a list of all of my vendors. I can go through and I can find the vendor that I'm looking for, and I can go under action and I can create a new document. Whichever way works best is really how you can do that. So one thing I do like to point out when you're going in here is that if you have more than 17 vendors, so it's only showing me 17 per page, I have 38 here, you can come down and have more, so that way you can get all of your vendors added in here. Just makes it nice and easy for you to do that. I'm going to pick on the same brand. So we're going to go ahead and do an action and new document. And now I'm in my receiving document. And just looks pretty much the same as when we were doing the purchase order. So if I want to add items, I have items that I can go in and I can search by. So go into search, I can search by specific code, description, sub-department, category, family, report code, alternate code, vendor. There is more criteria here as well. If you're wanting to stack more criteria, you could look for specific department, sub-department, family code, all of that's available at the top, but maybe you need an aisle, shelf, something like that that you're looking for. You want to stack all that criteria. I do like to always go in here for the item searches, because this is a little bit of a gotcha. It says items in the current document, especially if you're just creating a brand new document. You may want to uncheck that, make sure that that's unchecked, because you don't have any items in the current document. Should be unchecked, but just in case you're not getting any results if you come in here, make sure that that's unchecked, because if you're building a brand new document, you don't have any items in there. I'm going to leave it open-ended. We're just going to do execute. If I leave it open-ended, it should do the same thing as all, and it should just give me all the items that have a cost record tied to this vendor that I can add to this receiving document. So same thing applies with the receiving document that I just went over with the purchase order. You can come up here, you can add, subtract columns, move them around, all of that good stuff. You can save the criteria up here with the gear icon. Now you notice I do have a new field here. So I have received, so I'm under my receipts, so I'm going to be receiving these items, and then I have ordered. So if I did have these items on order right now, it would show that they were ordered previously. So it's a nice little viewpoint that you can then go through and you can look at. But if you're going to start going through and receiving, you can do it a few ways. You can click on these little divided columns. You can also click on receive, and this will bring up the receiving. Kind of, this is the same view. I like to always kind of tie this back to, like, if you're doing receiving an SMS, this is pretty similar. So you can pin this here if this is something that, as you're getting used to ThriVersA, you're wanting to refer back to the way that you're doing it in SMS. You can really, this is very similar, so you can go through. You can receive right here by cases, by units. Again, this is always all still tied to that record, that cost record. Even if it shows it's available, I'm actually double clicking in it. I can't change that because I can only receive it by case, so just an FYI. If you need to change the cost on just the document, that's right there. If you do want to change the cost, if you're noticing that this is wrong, the same idea applies as what I just went over with the purchase order document. So this is where I can always say two screens can come in handy. You can pull up the cost table. So I'm going to go up and pull my cost table up, and we'll pin that as well. And you can change the cost on the cost record, but you have to do it before you receive the item if you want it to reflect in the receiving document. So I've already received one of these, so I can't change it. It's not going to be retroactive. However, we'll just go to this item right here. So this item is $9.74 cost right there. I did not add the cost. It gets a little bulky, but you can add the cost in here if you want to. So we can just go ahead and we can add the cost. We're just going to say it went up to $10. Save. Like I said, I have a setting on right now. If I change my cost, it's going to prompt me to change the price. I'm just going to say no for right now. And now when I receive this item, I'm going to receive 2 cases. And it should be giving me that case at the $20. It looks like I may have some sort of deal on here, dealer bill back on this item. Or it just changed to $7.50. Thought I changed it to $10. Apparently I'm not saving it very well, so we'll just do save. Oh, no. But I had already received it, so we'll do it on this one. Oh, I see what I did. I saved it on here. Actually, a good got-to is that when I change the cost, it does bring you to the next line, something that it has gotten me. So now I can receive that case, and I will save that, and it will be at that price, at that cost. Not sure why it keeps jumping around on me, but once you're done and you've completed your receiving document, the same idea applies. So this is where I can go ahead and close out of some of these. So we're just going to go underneath that 3 lines. You can edit the line, the header. You can show the line, show the totals. If you're wanting to see all that before you're done, you can print the document. If you print the document, this can be printing you that receiving document. And you can suspend the document if you need to come back and add later, and then you can close the document or cancel the document. So all of that's still available. It's same place as it was with the purchase order, like I said, which makes it very easy when you're going between the different documents. You don't have to learn a new thing. It's right there. You can just know how to do one of them, and once you know how to do one of them, you'll be able to do all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and close the document, which will update my inventory. So the billing document, same idea. With the billing document, you just can go through. You can do this by vendor, search for a vendor. You can just hit all to get all your vendors to create a new document. You can just click on new if you need to create a new all standalone document, or you can go into documents and you can do it based off a closed receiving order and build a document based off a closed receiving order. The one key difference when you're doing a billing document is that you must have it be 0 to close the document. So same idea that applies if you're doing this in SMS, is that you do have to say that you've paid the vendor, so you have to have it zeroed out. So if we go in and we execute, I'm just going to build it from one of my closed receiving documents. And we'll just do one of the ones that I did earlier, so I can just click on that. You can just click on the one closed receiving document, click Action, and Open. Now I'm in a billing document, and it's already got the items that I've received already brought over. If you need to make any sort of adjustments with billing documents, you don't add items to billing documents because you've already received them. They've already been added to inventory. So you would just come over here and you're going to want to edit the existing lines. So you can just come in here and edit a line if you need to make the change to something. Maybe the cost change didn't come through correctly because I was having some issues. I was jumping around on different items. So they can come through and they can edit those right here. They can check the totals. But the big thing is that they need to complete. They need to charge. So they need to say how they paid this vendor. So you have a complete function, which you can come through and you can click on. So if you need to do an adjustment up, an adjustment down, any sort of allowances or discounts that they need to be added, that the vendor's added after the fact, can be added on here. So maybe you've got a global allowance of $2 and you add it in there and it will discount. Perhaps you have to add a shipping fee or a label fee, something else that they've decided to add on there. We'll just do a label fee of $3 just to add it on there. So you can see over here my global allowance, my label fee, they're all going to be added into that transaction total. And then you have to say how you paid. So account payment, cash payment, charge to account, check received, or drop payment. So you can come in here and say how the vendor was paid. We'll just say that there was a check payment of $40.64, which is my total. My balance is now 0, so now I can close the document. So confirm close, yes. And that billing document will be closed out. Like I said, that was building it off of a closed document, but you do still have the ability to do a new document. Just a little, if you're doing a new billing document, then you have to know the cost and everything of all the items. So it's usually, if you're going to be doing a billing document, based off of some document that you've already closed, but you can do a new one and just add all that in there. It's just always the reminder that any items added into the billing document won't add to your inventory because that's done at receiving. DSD, the last thing I'm going to go over is the all-in-one receiving and billing document. So this is exactly like what we just saw. It's just a combination of receiving and billing. So you're going to go in, you're going to build a new document, you're going to add your items to the document, and then you just have to say how you paid for this. So coming in here, I'm going to build a new one. You can do it by vendors, you can look at all, you can look at old documents, but you can't build a document based off of a closed document. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into new. We're going to pick our vendor. I'm just going to do a different vendor this time just to keep it a little different. So we'll do my Astro Dairy. Click on OK and create. So because this is a DSD document, it is that all-in-one billing document, it does tell me to choose the payment type to be registered. So I can choose right here how I'm going to pay that vendor. So you can say cash, check, or drop. So I'm just going to say check. I don't have the dollar amount yet, so I'm just going to close this. But if you did know the dollar amount, you could put that on there. I'm just going to close it for now, and I can come back and I can edit this later. And then I can add all my items into it. So again, same thing applies as to the receiving and the purchase order is I can click on items, which will give me that search. There's a little bit more scaled back with DSD. You can add more criteria, so all that criteria is still available. They just scaled it back because usually DSD is somebody's kind of showing up at the back door. You're just going to go through very quickly, but all that criteria is still available if you go under more criteria. So you get the family code, report code, subdepartment that we saw before. And then it still has that little gotcha with the items in the current documents. Make sure that's unchecked if you're not getting any results when you go in there and search. So I'm just going to execute it open-ended. This would have been the same thing as clicking all. So that way I can start going through and adding items into my DSD document. So going through, same idea with the unit of measures, it's case is C, so I can't order by units, I can't order by weight. If I do want to change that, I can pull up my cost table and I can edit that right here, my unit of measure. I can add cost in units. One gotcha I always like to point out, this is a gotcha in both ThriVersA and if you're using SMS, is that if you come in and the UOM is blank, by default that means case. If you come in thinking, I just need to be able to order by case and unit, and you click on unit, this is only going to allow you, I'm just going to pin this real quick, this is only going to allow you to be order it by units. Once you've changed it away from the default behavior, you do have to specify case and unit or case and weight, whatever you're adding on there. So you do have to have them both in order to be able to receive by both. You're overwriting the default. Oops, trying to capture the edge right there. Same thing also applies with the cost. So if you are editing the cost on here, you're wanting to change it to $12 cost, you can do that, and you can see over here my cost has changed. This does have the cost on there by default. So when you order, we'll just do 2 cases, it will populate that. You see $12, so it's a 20, I'm getting, I believe it's 10. So you kind of over here how many quantity you're getting and the dollar amount you're getting. And then you can go through and add in whatever other one, same thing with the red highlight, all of that. Save that at the end so that way you're not getting the little pause in between each one. Once you're done, right here with the drop down, you have all of the same options. You can look at the line, you can look at the header, you can look at the lines. The one thing that is different with the DSD document, like I said, it is an all-in-one with receiving and billing. So if I try to close this, it's going to say balance must be 0. So I do have to still do that. So those options with complete functions and charge to account, they're there. You can also edit the line of the payment that you did at the beginning, and you can do the full payment. Now I have it populated that I've ordered 100, so my balance is 100. I can edit that. You can click none at the beginning and do the payment at the end, like I showed you before, but it is kind of neat that you can just have it already there so that way you can edit it when you're done. So I can just say that my amount was 100 with the payment. It's up to you whichever way works. And then once you have that down there, you can then, if you've forgotten or you've picked check and you didn't mean to pick check, you can also do the complete functions and you can do a different payment if you need to. So there's that option as well. So that was what I wanted to go through. Did we have any questions come through, Christina?
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. Yep, we had one come through. I've seen the price generate screen several times. Can you show examples of how that's used?
So the price generate screen is an option that is available. We can have that do, you can have it come up by default every time that you change the cost of an item. And what that does is it will calculate a new retail price based off of what you have in that field. So let me just go through, I'll go into cost maintenance here. Just execute this. So if I'm going through and I want to change my cost on this item, I'm going to save. So this is going to say, you want to change your price. And so I want to send it to my retail price. And do I want to have a specific margin that I'm maintaining? You can set that on each item individually, or you can say, like, I want to maintain a 25% margin. If you want it to go into package price, if you want to go into limited, you can set the margin on there to go there as well. This would be all under retail since I have it set to retail and then my retail price. If you click yes, it will recalculate the price for this item and maintain that 25% margin based off of the cost change I just did. If I click no, it won't calculate. Always means it will always, in this session, it will just by default just say yes to, if I change the cost, it will just go ahead and update the cost to what I have set in here to retail to the 25%. If I say no, never, it will just not prompt me for the rest of the session. So once I log out, log back in, it will prompt me again. I can say yes, I just don't have the price pulled up right now because I was in cost. Let me do this, sorry. So if I have my price master pulled up, pin that. And let me just go to a different item. So we'll just go to, oh, look at that margin. I got a 68% margin. So if I come in here and I'm just going to change this to 10 and save. So I'm just going to say 25, retail, yes. And I got to refresh. And now it's suggested a new price for 67 cents that is maintaining a 25% margin. It may be slightly off. You see it's 25.4 just because of rounding. You know, 66 cents would be like 24 point something. 67 is 25 point something, but that's what that will do. And then that way, the next deploy, it will send it down to the lanes and the price will be updated. A lot of people do like this, so that way they can have a nice way of maintaining their margins. Just to show you down here for your margin, if you want to set it on your item, so that way when that pops up, I did type in 25. If you want to have this set to defaultly be 25 on this item, you would just set that in here. And then that way when it prompts, that prompt comes up, it'll say, oh, I can pull that margin from the item, so that way you can have different margins based on different items. If you want to have that, oh, go ahead.
Nope, sorry, go ahead. Thought you were done with that.
I'm sorry, no, real quick. If you want to have that prompt come up every time you're making a cost change, like mine has been doing, that is a setting that our help desk can turn on for you. If you want to have it manually come up, just FYI, on the cost table, that's this little dollar sign right here is the generate price, and that would be a way you can manually get it to pull up. So that's all. Go ahead, Christina, sorry.
So we do have a couple other questions, but one other one came in about this price generate tool. So I just want to skip down to that. They're asking if you have rounding rules, like to the nearest 9 cents.
So you can have a rounding rule. This is a single digit rounding rule. So yes, so you can set 8, you can set 9. That would be the last digit, what it will round to. So that's this field right here when you're doing that. On the item, it's right here. So if you wanted to do that by item again, you could have 25% and 9, it would round to the nearest 9. Or 8 or 7. It would make the last digit, so this would be 69 cents. Or you could do 868 cents. So it'll round it to that last digit is what you want it to be. And again, that can be on the generate tool or on the item.
Okay. Perfect. The next question is, how is the functionality on handheld terminal PDAs?
So right now, the way that we're currently offering our PDA is we are still offering on the RX the PDA option, so it does still behave the same way. There is a new functionality with M Suite that's coming out. We haven't got that rolled out yet. So if you do have a handheld, it's the same PDA option that you've been currently using. It's really the same idea with going through all of the receiving, the purchase order, the billing documents, the DSD documents on the handheld. That's certainly something I can show in another webinar, or I can reach out and show that directly. If you wanted to see how it flows through.
Okay. And then the last question I have on here, oh, actually we have another one that just came in. So the next question, the charge account would be the proper way to bill this off with an AP integration of QuickBooks for a later ACH or mailing check payment. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. If you are doing a GL export, you would want to charge it to the account so that way it shows up as the vendor balance. So you would continually have that balance building for that vendor, and they would balance each other out. Yes, correct.
Okay. And then the last question I have for right now, can you set a future price batch based on the cost change?
Yes. There is a utility that you can utilize that will create a batch that will take the, I'm sorry, you said price or cost, Christina?
You said future price batch based on cost change.
You can do it, I'm sorry, yeah, you can do a future cost batch. So if you're doing just cost changes in here, you can do a future cost, but a future price, you would want to have like a built-in margin on the price is what my assumption would be for that. We could certainly build something like that, but we would want to, it would be like you want to maintain a specific margin. So if you wanted to say, I know I'm using 25%, I don't know why, but 25% margin after you do a cost change, it's because you're not usually doing a lot of cost changes in here. So I think that could be something, if that's something that is available, we could definitely discuss that, but that's not really going to be, usually you're doing cost changes not just in the receiving document, you're talking about doing cost changes outside of it. So once you do the cost change, we could have a tool that would generate a price suggested based off of if you have a margin in the item, or if you have a specific margin you want to maintain for your store, we could work with you and get that to be something that's set up. But it would be something that we would have to put some scripting and customization in to do.
Yeah, so somebody, I'm assuming this is relating to what you were just talking about, somebody just wrote in there, we don't want prices to change immediately. They want to price tags, etc. Or they need it for price tags.
Yeah, so a batch, that way you could do a future price batch, make the labels, and then put it out there. Yeah, I get that. And like I said, that would be like, we could do something that would scrub all of the cost changes. And then, like I said, that big question with that would be, we'd work with you because what margin do you want the price to be calculated on? Do you want it to be calculated on the margin in the item? Do you want to set your own margin for all these? So it's definitely something doable, but it's something we would work with you on to get all of that, all those questions answered. And then yes, then you could create a batch, a future price batch. That way you can go through it, print tags, make sure you want to change the price. Maybe it's, you know, like a staple item you don't want to change the price on with the cost change, something like that. So you can just make some changes if you would like to, and then execute the batch at your leisure once you have the tags and everything through.
Okay. And then one more comment in here. I'm not sure if you're able to show on this screen or if maybe this needs to be something separate. But somebody's asking if someone can walk through the method of scanning and receiving on a PDA against the PO so that they can see what's missing from the PO.
I can definitely do that. I would definitely just like to set up a different session. Just like I said, because I could go through all the fields with the handheld to build it from a closed document and all that. Yes, I unfortunately wasn't ready with the PDA right now, so I can definitely get that set up and we can go over that at a future time. Absolutely.
Okay. So Randy, I can set something up and let you know when that is, and then we can do that separately.
Yeah.
All right.
I usually like to test my module, sorry, and I haven't tested PDA on here for a couple days, so just to spot check that before I go over it.
Nope, you are good. So those were all the oh, wait, hold on. I think something else just came in. Yep, two more. All right. So, yep, Randy's good with doing something in a separate time. Perfect. Can you please set up some training with PDAs? None of the training. Yeah, so none of the training explained the PDA side. So I think we do need to, Jen, maybe schedule something outside of the traditional once a month that's relating to the PA side of this, and then we can let everybody know what date and time that's going to look like.
Absolutely, that's a great idea.
Awesome. I don't have any other questions in here. So thank you all for joining. We will get the PDA side of this set up and let you guys all know. Give me a little bit to get the recording live in case anybody needs to rewatch or needs to send it to anybody else internally. Hope everybody has a good day, and we will chat on the next webinar.
Thank you.